Hello, and welcome to another episode of Painters Motivating Painters, where we give people constructive feedback on their miniatures to give them a boost to take their next step on their hobby journey. As always, I'm Matt, and I'm joined by Jim, and we have our end of month review from Facebook and some lovely miniatures for us to give a go over. So we'll start off with Justin Lau, do a Tyranid Carnifex thing. Looking for tips on blending to make the carapace spines more fluid. All right, cool.
Screamer Killer.
Yeah, the classic, the new, old. Everything old is new again. I always think its face looks kind of like the Predator for some reason.
It is a bit toothy, isn't it?
Yeah. So I assume what you mean by blending the carapace in is these like kind of like orange spot, like you have the orange highlight in the spines on the arms, and then also on the plates themselves. So the kind of traditional way you would blend that out would be to mix up some transitional colors. So like take your red and your orange and mix it like 25% orange and then 50% and then 75% and then 100%, and basically do a bigger stripe, like a thicker stripe, starting with your most red color. So you would cover nearly like all the plate with the mostly red, slightly orange, and then a smaller amount and a smaller amount until you end up with just the orange here. And that gives it that kind of like striated look, kind of like it's like fingernails or whatever, the way they grow in like layers. And it'll also kind of blend it together, give it a bit more of an organic look. You can also do it in reverse. So the way you have quite a strong, hard, like black shadow in between the plates. So you can mix red and black and then do like smaller kind of triangular shapes. It's always about these like making these triangles that point to where the color ends. And yeah, it is a bit trickier on the arms because obviously the spines themselves kind of stick up and they're not like part of that flat panel. But you can kind of do the same thing either by like starting it like a little bit like outside of the spine, like doing it like your maybe your 50-50 orange, and then doing it as you work up the spine like a cone kind of thing. You get less and less area and more orange in it. And then you can do the same thing on these spore chimney things. I'm never sure how to deal with those because like they seem like they should be hollow, but and sometimes they are hollow, sometimes they're not. So you've got kind of like that red carapace color on the inside, which looks fine. I don't know if it look better in black. I know that some of the Forge World ones they actually have like all these pipes and tubes in it, which makes it a lot easier. I think it's a little bit of a cheapiness where the way they take photos, the angle never shows into those holes, so they don't care so much how they actually deal with them. But obviously from the side views, it looks perfect having the orange highlight around the top, and it makes sense with the overall scheme. Which is nice. I really like the way I love your like the way you've got this kind of reverse lava base going on, where it's like blue, and then that like contrasts really strongly with the Screamer Killer being all in warm colors. And then that's about it, really. I think it's a really nice approach to this figure. Jim, do you have anything to add on there?
Yeah, just to bring out the chitinous, I think is the term, like effect on it, is just to use the the volumes of the carapace itself to put some highlights and shadows onto it. So you've got a good run of color here, being very black in the recesses. Then you've just got a very broad and flat red, and then obviously the highlighting up to the orange. So you definitely need to get some more transition between the colors to make it really, really pop. So these are quite bulbous shapes here. So you would these central bits. I mean, the light from your camera is sort of telling you what to do here. So the set down the center run of it would be a brighter red, and then where the sort of shape falls away around the dominess, then you can integrate some of the darker shadow colors. And then probably going as far as black is maybe a smidge too far, to be honest. You could get away with using purple, like a purpley black or like a browny black in there, rather than just the straight Abaddon black that's gone on there. But apart from that, I think you've done a good job. Like the bony, like the creamy coloured parts of it are much more subtle in contrast, and I think that works quite well. And as Matt said, yeah, it's a cool contrasting base with it as well. So yeah, just next time try and use the volumes of the shapes. You can use dry brushing to do. These are great models to dry brush because they've got a lot of exposed ridges. So have a look at that technique. If you have access to an airbrush, then That's obviously a very fast, brilliant way to do it. Not cheap or easy, but I think everyone recommends, if at all possible, learn how to airbrush, because these models will be so much quicker to do. Or just the traditional layering technique also works with building up these highlights and bullying these shadows around. So, but yeah, it looks really, really cool. I like the scheme. So nice one, Justin. Keep it up. Moving on to Sebastian with a fairly dark and gritty Krieg army. So this was the first time he's trying out some OSL with some mixed results. Looks okay at a distance, but closer it's very gritty. Put some effort into the base to help the model pop a bit more. Yeah, the base is absolutely awesome. We love that. The only kickback on that would be to have a bit more of a defined rim, a nice clean black rim. But like the snow effect, the bits and bobs that you would expect to see in this kind of very busy military setting, the way you've painted the wood and the metals and stuff, settling down, the tufts with the snow, all really, really good stuff. The model itself is great as well. Like there's corrosion and weathering where you'd expect to see it, mixed in with, the super bright highlights of it as well, to show that not the entire surface has gone to ruin. That's really, really cool. The guys themselves as well have got a good level of detailing. So the model itself is really, really strong, I think. So great work there. I'd love to see the rest of this army, like with this thing integrated in there. That'd be so cool. The OSL for me, not really hitting home completely. There's parts of it that are okay, and then some parts that are just sort of killing the effect, to be honest. So the first one, as you know, as you pointed out yourself, is like the grittiness of it. What has just happened here? Facebook has just crapped itself on me. One moment, please, while I get the picture back. There we go. So, yeah, the grittiness of it. So it looks like you've kind of stippled it or dry brushed it or something. Layering is probably a little bit more reliable when you've got quite a textured surface like that. It looks like you've kind of, however that base coat has gone on with either stippling or sponging or whatever, it looks like the paint's quite thick. So then if you've gone on to sort of do a dry brush on it, you're picking up all of those raised sections. So be a little bit more careful with getting smoothness. Like it has to be smooth for OSL to sell. And then you've got like a really, really bright center, which is great. But then the way that the green is sort of emanating out is not sort of very consistent. So when light spreads out, it's impeccably consistent and smooth. And then where there are surfaces that shouldn't have light, they should be really, really darkly shadowed. So this ridge right here, there should be no green light on top of that at all, because the light's coming out and it's hitting this edge face here. So that side would all be cast in shadow from this light. So you can't paint light on anything without also painting shadows, right? So if this green light is strong enough to wipe out the zenithal light, then there would have to be a shadow for the OSL light to be having that effect, if that makes sense. Same on the other side. So we've got a really strong zenithal light that he's painted in. You've got super bright highlights. Everything is well lit. So there's no reason really that this, what's the word? Comparatively small light source. You've got this tiny little LED light in here, which is apparently overshadowing the entire power of the sun. So none of this should be green down on this section here, and there shouldn't be any green on that sandbag either. There's just no way it would be that bright. Less is more with OSL, right? So keep this to a really, really tight and tidy area around where that green light is, and it will sell much, much better. And then where the cast light is coming out, you then need to paint an occlusion shadow, which is basically just a shadow between where the cast light is and where the zenithal, like the environmental light is, right? So if you don't have that shadow between the two, it just never will sell. So try that out next time. Just shrink the area, make it smoother, and make sure there's like a ring of shadow around the cast light as well. Give that a go. It's a very, very hard thing to do. Nice shot at it. So keep it up. But yeah, less is definitely more with OSL. But yeah, other than that, brilliant model, very nicely done. And like I say, I'd like to see the rest of the army. Looks awesome. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, yeah, it's a great looking scene. Like it literally just looks like it's a trench. It's got real World War I vibes, which is obviously what you want with this crew. Um, and like the OSL, it doesn't look like really realistic because all of the things Jim said. But I think it still looks like good if it's like for an army. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be super realistic. It kind of like feels a little bit like stylized, like it's a film where it's like okay, they've got this light, but the soldiers have this light, but the film crew have other lights they're pointing at them to make it like brighter than it would be in real life. Um, so I'm kind of fine with that. And like, there's all the snow, the kind of grittiness. I think kind of works because of the snow. It makes it feel like it's like grains of snow or whatever. I would definitely cut it down a little bit on this sandbag in the front though. Like that's just it's getting to the stage there where it looks like it is green, if that makes sense to you. It looks kind of like a watermelon. You don't want you don't want to have a situation where like this is essentially the issue with OSL, where if you make it strong enough, it just looks like the object is that color and it's under natural light, as opposed to it being in a dark environment and there's a colored light incident on it. But I think yeah, for like a kind of somewhat stylized approach and for an army scale thing rather than it being like a diorama for display or whatever, I think it's really really good. Base is really nice. I think the ground on the base is a little bit grey though. Like it looks a bit like the soil. I don't know if it's the photos or what, but the soil itself looks like like coal kind of. I think it'd be nice to have a little bit of color in there. Just give it a bit more richness. You could have it be like really dark green or really dark brown or like a mixture of all those. And it will end up looking actually darker if you use like complementary colors. Because I suppose you're kind of trying to evoke a bit of a nighttime feel without it having to be like actually lit kind of like nighttime or just like it's dark and gloomy. But I think you could still have some color in the soil itself to make it seem even more dark, if that makes any sense to you. But yeah, great looking guys. Really, really appropriate for the Krieg Marines. Kriegsmarine? No, that's something different. Krieg Guardsmen. I'd love to see some more in the future. Okay, up above here, we got Zachary Stewart with his Eldari fellow. This, I said to Jim, like, I just had to laugh so much when I saw this because I just love the fact that his banner is a picture of his own head. Like, it just reminds me of is it Airplane where he's like drinking a mug of coffee and the camera like pans out and it's a photo on the wall and he's also of himself drinking a mug of coffee. Like, yeah. But anyway, it's a really cool looking piece. The scheme is very nice. I like that kind of like obviously blue contrasting with the magenta glow you got going on. You've also got some other colors worked in very effectively with the red being a bit desaturated and the green being a bit desaturated as well. To like so it doesn't like look too kaleidoscopic. Um, I like the way the green or the pink glow is coming up, especially on the bottom of his cloak there. I think that's very effective. And I like the way the texture in the cloak looks really nice as well. And on the various other bits of armor and stuff, it looks, like they're all different materials, which is very nice. I have a little bit of an issue with these hair frond things he's got on his helm. I think it's like largely to do with the sculpt, where again they've done that thing where there's like hair sculpted in on the sides, but if we zoom around to the back, it's just completely flat and like it looks really weird because it's like got texture running up the sides, but then they just didn't want to have undercuts, so they left it flat there. And it kind of from the back it looks like it's meant to be like wraith bone or whatever rather than an actual like horsehair plume, but from the sides they have that texture worked in. So I think you could kind of like deal with that by like drawing in little lines, like little horizontal lines connecting the little ridges together, or doing like a stippling texture on the back to make it look more like it's is some sort of textured material, rather than it just being like perfectly flat there. But like that's not on you, that's on Games Workshop really. Base I found to be weirdly brightly colored. Like this soil down the bottom is like really pale orange, but the whole figure looks like it's in a pretty dark environment. Like so, like it doesn't really make any sense for it to be this bright. It's like normal daytime, but then the whole figure is like have all this OSL and stuff. So I definitely darkened down the soil tones a lot myself. Um, and then say about this. Oh yeah, the OSL. Like I said, it works really well on the cape, but I think it's a bit too strong on the sword and the gun kind of up here. It's getting a little bit into that territory again where it just looks like it is pink. Like especially for like if the gem is the source of this light, it's gonna radiate like away from the sword. It's not really gonna illuminate up here, and it's gonna only illuminate the underneath of the gun. It wouldn't even illuminate the underneath of the gun unless there's another gem on the other side. Is there? Yeah, there is. But yeah, the underneath of the gun, but you have it like on the top of the gun as well. Starts looking like it's like a bubble that wraps around, but light is like a load of rays, so it doesn't wrap over things like that. Um, but like that's easily fixed just with some glazes to like bring back the shadow, and also to add in, say, like on this ridge of the sword where it goes from the like not the fuller, the ricasso, like the bit where it's like blunt, and then there's like a thing that sticks up, and then it goes into the blade. Should probably actually be a shadow immediately on the far side of that because it's casting its own shadow, and that might make it sell a bit more as a light effect as opposed to the whole sword looking like it's glowing. Although maybe you were going for the whole sword glowing and not 100% sure. Um, yeah, I think it's a strong piece overall. It's got a lot of character, and it does have that nice uh middle ground in between being like grimdark, really weathered and manky, and being the like ultra pristine style for Eldar that you'd see, that to contrast that with the goblin green base that we all love. So yeah, good work all around, Jim.
Yeah, I very much agree. Not too much else to add. It looked great. First things to say. Love how you've picked out the armor and the cloth and stuff. That looks really nicely well separated across everything. The metals really sell as well. Looks like TMM, I believe. So you've done a really great job of highlighting and shading, separating out all the very very tiny metal pieces that are everywhere on this dude. So that looks cool. Yeah, I agree with Matt. I mean, if you look at the oversell on the gun from this angle, it looks loads better. And so I think, yeah, if you were to make this toner a bit darker, as it's a bit further away from the gem, and then obviously black it out on top, it would sell a lot better. This, for some reason, I don't know, the light's catching it slightly different. So from this angle, I think it looks better. Then the other, I mean, everything's really, really nice and tidy. The only thing that's kind of upsetting me is the glyphs on the banner just look really, really dirty, but not in a good way, if that makes sense. It looks kind of like you washed it with an oil wash, and a lot of it stayed in the recesses and is kind of muddying the water. I mean, nothing else is really this weathered or dirty on him. Like his armor is pristine, like the bottom of his cape is pristine. There's not anything really like dirt or damage on him anywhere, apart from the writing on the banner, and also I've just noticed the plumage on the helmet as well. So it's kind of, it doesn't look like subtle shading. It just looks like dirt and grime, which is fine, but there's got to be dirt and grime elsewhere as well to sort of tie it together. So it just looks like a hastily applied oil wash. So I think some tidying up in these areas would really, really help, because the rest of it I'm struggling to find fault with, to be honest. It's really, really great. There's a couple of areas where maybe the glow it's not quite too clear, but again, it might be the pictures, like where this glow is coming from. Like this bit I get, because it's right above this room, but this section here, like there's nothing pink below it, so I'm not really sure why that bit's pink. But that's being quite picky. But yeah, otherwise, really, really fabulous piece, really, really great. So I hope you take that as it's intended, Zachary. And yeah, please come again. Very, very nice work. And it's done it again. Oh, I love Facebook. Press a button once, and it gives you
We'll have
about.
to say some prayers to Mark Zuckerberg or something. Like, anoint your screen with oils.
We need some purity seals. We need to appease the machine spirit.
Yeah.
Praise the Omnisire. Right, we're back. Batch Painter Minis with a cool Gaia Reborn. Larger scale, I believe this one. Right, 70, 90 mil something. Decided to take her off the base and popped her on a plinth to add some flowers to give the idea she's creating new life. First attempt at display level model, looking for general info on where I can improve composition, and any other criticism is welcomed. I will give the video a quick spin, but Facebook does this thing where it just absolutely obliterates the quality, and we can actually tell very little from that, so save your effort next time. Just pictures. Pictures are great. Very, very nice atmospheric lighting on her. That's very, very nicely done. The hands and forearms are quite bright, so I'd maybe try and keep the attention a bit higher up by keeping like the chest and the neck and the face a little bit brighter. I know you've got this very, very clear blue, like it looks like a the birth of a new life. It's like a human child is developing in there. So you've obviously got a lot of focus and attention going there, and that's cool. You could maybe put a darker ring of shadow around this, as I explained earlier. Like you can't cast light without casting a shadow as well. So like where the blue OSL is coming up on the arms, there needs to be like more. There needs to be like more shadow on the inside of the arms in general. It's all quite similarly lit to the tops. So just make sure you're darkening down the edge of this cast glow as well, everywhere it goes. Before it touches something light, it has to fall away into darkness before you get the zenithal light again. But I like the way you've rendered it. You know, you can see what it is quite clearly, so that's all good. Having a look at the back, the flowers look really nice as well. How it does look like she's kind of just walked past that and created it because it's quite dead and dying around it. So I think that effect is quite a success. Looks like you could do with a little bit more separation in their. I think it's hair, where you would expect hair to be, shall we say? A little bit more. There's definitely a lot of detail and features in here where you could push shadows, separate elements. You know, you could play around with different tones. I like the blend out to the red, like through the orange spectrum. That's really, really cool. I like how you've done that. But just it's the same on this section here of these leaves as well. There's just a little bit more detail which you could get. This section here looks better actually. That section there looks good. So if you can carry that over to these like ivy type leaves that are going across the chest, that would be cool. Pretty horrible gap there. Try and fill gaps when you're modeling. Then the eyes, I thought it would be cool if they were blue. I don't think that they're blue. I think it's just white. If there is some blue in there, forgive me. It doesn't look like it from here, from these pictures. But I thought a blue eye would be a nice way to tie in with the blue that's going on in the abdomen. So yeah, I hope you find that helpful. And I shall now pass you over to Matt for more constructive criticisms.
Yeah, it's really nice. I like the way you've done like you have the blue kind of centered on the figure, and you've reserved that for the kind of crystal baby kind of thing, and then it's all in kind of natural tones. Otherwise, working in kind of like autumn hues at the edges of the hair to make it look a bit more interesting, and also it totally works with the theme. Yeah, and the way like the grass and stuff is springing up around the foot looks really really good. Yeah, and I just agree with Jim on the kind of like glowy effect. I think you went a little bit. I think there is like a little face in there, isn't there? Yeah. I think you could probably, it looks like you went for like having the glow be very centered in it, but then it kind of makes it a little bit harder to read. So you can kind of cheat in there and just highlight the face a bit more and have it be like, yeah, it's got a glowy crystal face too. And maybe tone down the torso or some of the less important bits. Um, because realism is it's only there to service the piece, if that makes sense. Also, crystal babies glow doesn't have to be super realistic. It could be whatever you want it to be. I think no one's looking at real life for reference on that. Yeah, great looking piece. I think the special base for it, big improvement. Thanks for submitting. Hopefully that was of help to you. On top of it, big old serious looking piece here for the salute competition in London. Want some general feedback. What stands out for areas of improvement? Okay, cool. So, first of all, congratulations. Even if you didn't win the contest, putting all that effort in, it's kind of worth it in its own. And at the end of the day, who wins depends on who else submitted. So, yeah, I think there's a couple of things I like to begin with. I love the really rich green you've got like in the fabric of her clothes, and how you've also got that kind of like in the base, but then you have a bunch of other kind of yellow greens and stuff as well, and it gives it this whole kind of like sort of huntress in the forest kind of feel without being, even though it's quite a different kind of theme for the figure, like is in the sculpt itself. Skin is very very good. There's a lot of it, and there's a lot of lovely like sheen to it in places. You got a lovely transition on the thighs and shadow, the way you worked it around the knees. Very, very, very well rendered, if I may say so. And then I like the use of like interference colors in various places. Like you have kind of like the metal on the bow has this kind of purple light coming up into it, and then like bits of the skin kind of go into more of a gray or a purplish hue down towards the bottom. And I think that's very much adds an extra layer of depth and like interest to the piece overall. Um, what you got on the bow? Like I like the NMM you've done overall, but on the bottom part of the bow, the like kind of pattern you've gone for, it's like very symmetrical across the two faces. Like you got one plane that's like this, and then you got another one that's like this, and you have almost the same pattern like running across it, which is like generally the opposite of what you want to do with your NMM. You want to have, if this face is bright, this one will be dark, and vice versa, because it makes it look kind of like it's crystal or something instead, which still looks cool. I think he did it much better on the top bow end cap. I don't know what that's called. I think actual bows have them anyway. Um, the armor is very well rendered, but it's missing that kind of interference color or like natural reflection. It ends up looking a little bit sterile the way like her left leg, it's all like this kind of gray steel, and then her right leg's the exact same. And like bits of like her shin where it's all bent and it's facing towards the ground doesn't have that green coming up into it. There's none of that purple in there. There's a little bit on her kind of chest armor, but it's more in the leg armor. It just isn't, it could just do with having some filters lightly in there of the same colors just to make it look a little bit more alive, I feel. And then on the face, it looks like you got a little bit of like texture buildup if we zoom in a lot. And that can happen when you're working for a long time with skin colors, because they tend to be kind of chalky, and it looks like it can like parts of it can dry out and you end up with these little tiny clumps of paint. Uh, Depending on the competition, they might like really zoomed in there and seen those. So, and the only way to really deal with them is kind of raises them off. Um, on the face, it's like I like the way it's kind of like the palest skin color, and it's got that kind of like anime aesthetic to it, but it doesn't have as good a run of color as the rest of the figure. It doesn't have as much variation, and some of it's kind of like flat looking, like especially your forehead looks like it's just like one solid kind of plane of pale flesh tone, if that makes sense. And I think, you know, probably that's like a stylistic choice, like she's like got pale makeup on or whatever. But I think it would look better if you just use the same approach that you had on like the legs and things as well. And then on the hair, I think it's an interesting look where it's kind of like straddling the line between is it yellow or is it blonde? Because this is a kind of an anime inspired piece. So you can get away with having kind of unnatural hair colors. You got a few little balls of dried up paint there as well. So take those off. But I think you could have a little bit of a more white highlight in places. Like in anime, you'll see that they'll do the hair and they have these like jagged zigzaggy lines of like pure white going through it, just to like, or like very pale skin tone you could even use to bring it more slightly more into like an actual blonde hue, and also just to up the value contrast that's in it. It is a bit tricky now. Obviously, this is like nobody has that much hair, and even if they did, it wouldn't hang like that in the air. And so trying to like incorporate realism into it can be a bit tricky. But I think it could just in a few places have more extreme highlight to show that it's real glossy, um, because that would look nice. And then that's it, really. I think it's like a really, really strong piece. I think it's very, very well rendered all over the place, and it definitely shows the amount of time and effort you put into this. And you know, I'm sure there's other contests where it would have taken first place. You know, it depends on who you're up against on the day. So don't take that badly at all. I'm sure you didn't. Thanks very much, Jim.
Yeah, 100% on a different day. This could have won. So keep taking her, keep refining her, take her again. Different competition, different day. You know, it's capable of winning something. That's for sure, 100%. Matt's bang on the money with everything. I should think. I haven't got too much else to add. Looks gorgeous. Like the skin's amazing, the hair's amazing. Bar the couple of bits that Matt mentioned. So there's two bits for me that stood out. One is contrast in the silver on the headpiece is not as strong as other areas in the shadows. So try and get some more shadows bullied into some of the like I think called filigree, is it? Like the really detailed, intricate metal patterning. That would be cool. And then, so the bowstring, cool idea. Like this is definitely what you should be doing. I assume that you cut the piece off that it came with because it was far too fat and thick, like they always are. But it just doesn't. This string that you've done here doesn't quite sell as having the stored potential energy that would be in that weapon, drawing back that full length of the arrow. So it just looks a little bit slack, which is probably a really harsh thing to say, considering this is a piece of fishing wire or something. But if there is any way at all of getting that to look tighter, that would really, really help, because at the minute we've got this, we all know what happens when you fully draw a bow, and it's very, very tight, that string. So instantly it's like, the brain it just rebels straight away. It doesn't look, it doesn't compute, it doesn't register with us properly. Our minds are very, very good at noticing things that are not in the same pattern that they should be. If that makes sense. So on the same vein, there's one other disconnection with this, which you really have to zoom in for. But again, and it's this one. It's the path of the eyes for me. Like, she's drawing that bow back. You would be looking straight down that arrow, and her eyes are kind of looking over here. So if you were to just adjust the shape of the pupil and the iris and the whites of the eyes to make her look like she's looking like up a little bit and across, like following the path of the arrow, because in the minute she's just sort of staring blankly this way, she needs to be sort of staring that way. So you need to just change the shape of the eyes to follow that arrow, and I think that would give a much better connection with the weapon. But like execution on the paint in general is really, really very, very good. So hats off to you for all of that. Some of the like really deep recess shading is a little bit chunky if we're being hypercritical, but this is for competition purposes, so you get harsh feedback. So yeah, watch out for like the really deep separation, but like that's really, really far zoomed in as well. So, but some judges do scrutinize it to that degree. So yeah, just keep refining it, keep taking it, because when we look at the pictures from here, it's really, really beautiful, stunning piece. And take heed with what Matt said about the interference colours in the metals as well on the lower portion of the model, just the lower legs really. That will really help as well. So yeah, awesome stuff. Well done. Thank you very much, and good luck in the future with her. And has Facebook done it again? Yes, Facebook's done it again. Fantastic work. Oh, what a roll. I think this is the worst ever, isn't it? Every time I press close, it just backs me right out.
Yeah, I don't think you haven't been like drizzling lizard blood all over your PC every now and again. Yeah, that's probably why.
I need to make more sacrifices to Mr. Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Clicking every ad you see 5 times.
Yes, not 4, 5 is the magic number.
Yeah, 5, exactly.
Right, so DM Con with a whip. We don't usually do whips, dude. But this looks progressed enough to actually review. The reason we don't do whips is because we don't know what else you're going to do, so it's a bit unfair to give critique when we don't know what else you've got up your sleeve. So, but this looks progressed enough. So on the areas that you've wanted, free hands, the NMM bits, then yeah, we can do that. Absolutely, that's fine. So the red armor I will start with, and I say that looks awesome. Perhaps just a little bit glossy. So again, as a whip, I don't know if you're going to matte it down, but if you weren't going to matte it down, then please do, because you've got great contrast in these reds, and it's being obliterated by light because it's appearing in where you've painted shadows. Like there's a really good example, there's a good example, there's a good example. So make sure it's matted down, but like the weathering, the edge highlighting, the shadow placement on the reds is all really, really nice. Great stuff on the freehand. Like it's quite a sketchy, like painterly kind of style of freehand, so you can't really go wrong with that, because it's like the artist made it look quite sketchy, and that's how it goes. That's the artist that did it, not me. So that's absolutely fine. You can't argue with this style of freehand. It's a great choice. I love it. How you've done like the chapter markings as well and damaged them through. That looks really good. So the armor in general is really, really working. For the NMMs, I would say it's almost there. It's not quite. It's not quite got the smoothness and like the like the full run of color. So if this is gold, like you've got a really good run of color in the central motif, the Aquila, I think it is. Not sure. I think it goes up a lot brighter. So on these sections of these barrels here, these melter barrels, I think they are, that needs to go up to that same level of gold, basically. Much higher highlight and try and smooth it out. Or if you're going to make it look like a brushed metal, they need to be much finer and more of them. The brush strokes, that is. Same with the silver. Really, it's quite sketchy and scratchy. So just more glazes. Very gentle dry brushing even works to smooth it out. Dry brush it a bit, then glaze, then dry brush, then glaze. It helps get a nice smooth. This one looks pretty decent. That's getting there. This is more in the direction that we want to see this, but again, go more, go smoother, finer lines, thinner glazes, just to really tie them all together and get them really smooth. That's how to help those metals sell. And then when you go in with your edge highlights, they need to be pretty much white on silvers and golds. So yes, I hope you find that helpful enough. But it's looking really good, dude. Coming along very nicely. Again, as it's whips, I don't want to be too critical with like blacking out gun barrels, drilling gun barrels. These exhaust vents, either drill them out or paint them black. All that sort of stuff. I don't know whether you're going to do that. So yeah, next time, totally finished piece, please. And then when you come to do your base again, I'm sure you're going to do it anyway. But for heaven's sake, man, tidy base rim, please. But yeah, other than that, really nice. So I've done it again. What is going on? No. Where is Facebook gone? There we go. Okay, cool. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah. Great looking piece. Armor looks really good. I love the way you did the scratches in it. Freehand looks really good. I love the way you got scratches in the freehand. That's really just showing off your old cojones. NMM works best for me. I think Jim said it, but I can't actually see the screen. The side knees? Is that what you're saying? The knee, like the little balls on the side of the knees? Is that what you thought the best NMM was on it?
No, I was going to say the shoulder joint here on the raised arm.
Okay, yeah, that's also that's pretty good too. Actually, yeah, it's actually on the right arm. Yeah, the kind of hip joints, it looks like you've gone a little bit over the top in terms of how many reflections are on there. Like some of them have like 8 different bands of light, but like that wouldn't like why would there be 8 light sources and 8 like things that are dark and shadow? And then the disc at the back, like I think with your goals, you really need to think about like the like on the guns, you've kind of got this overall thing over it's like brightest in the top, medium on the sides, and darkest in the bottom. Uh, and then, but on the skull chest thing, that's not really there. The bottom of the eye sockets should be dark, and then this part of the eye socket should be bright because it's facing up, but you just have it all blacked out. And then similarly, like this part of the head should be bright, but this part should be like dark. Uh, there's loads of videos on that. Look at Richard Gray painting any Space Marine. He's going to do this Aquila thing. He's going to do it in NMN Gold, and it'll look great. And you just try and emulate it and fail to emulate it and try to be a better man every day. You never quite get there because you're Richard Gray.
Because it's Richard Gray.
Definitely, you'll get closer. Just as a random aside, I'm not 100% sure why the like melted barrels are gold. Like, would that not just like melt? It's like or flamethrower. I thought steel might have made more sense, or brass. I suppose they are sometimes. Maybe I don't know. Or like the barrels at least should maybe be steel. And I was gonna say, yeah, you don't have to go like super reflective on all the metals, especially on the like working parts. Like it looks like you're going for a little bit less reflective on the gun barrels and stuff, and that makes sense because they're not really polished up, they're not ornamental, and they're going to get worn in and wrecked. But yeah, it's a great looking piece overall. I think like with the amount you've done on it, you can be very happy with it. And even if you're like, oh yeah, NMM isn't exactly what I wanted, people are going to look at it and they're going to look at all the free hands and the lovely red armor, and they're going to think it's cool. So good job.
And this awesome, fantastic pose as well.
Yeah, so like do it like a little happy dance, like it's a
YMCA.
Okay, next up we got longtime friend of the show, Alexis Benair, with this kind of cool party of people. I don't know if this is the same, like you did that kind of Lord of the Ring or the Hobbit kind of inspired one last month. It looks like it's very similar kind of idea anyway. Very cool looking piece with our five little adventurers all going off on whatever adventure they're going on. I really, really love the way you've done the eyes on the Hobbit. Like it looks so, it's almost frighteningly lifelike. The way he's like looking down at his thing, and he's got this like really like worried expression on his face, and like the eyeballs almost look like real eyeballs. It's almost like getting into that uncanny valley kind of area. So good work on that. Also, the arm hair on the dwarf is like a ridiculously good detail to have there. I love the fact that it's like the same color as his hair, and he's gone bald, but he's got plenty of arm hair. So probably take some pride in that. And I like as well how this you've got this kind of barbarian in the background, and he's kind of like a nice mix between the classic like Franz Frazetta like super stern, no face, high contrast, butch, muscular barbarian, but he's like a little bit softer and happier. Kind of reminds me of Terry Pratchett has like the old Conan character. And it kind of reminds me of that, where he's a big ripped barbarian, but he's not like all about the murder and things. Um, okay, just looking at the piece, I think the piece looks really, really strong from the front, and it starts to get a little bit weaker as we go around to the sides. Especially if you look at like the elf guy's forehead, like you have him lit. Obviously, he's side onto the camera, so he's lit like very strongly here, and but it kind of immediate. He's got no kind of like bounced back highlight on like this side of his head, whereas like the light is going to go past him and it's going to come back and illuminate something here a bit more, or your kind of like cold light coming from behind should give you a bit of a rim just along that side of his head that's away from the light, just to call out the detail a bit more, especially because you have like your brow bone, you have like side bits, and then it actually sticks up slightly more here. So even the light that's coming from the front is going to catch this a little bit more. Um, and then you don't have any kind of like Terminator on his hair or anywhere apart from his jaw. Like it goes to dark on his jaw and then back up to light. But everywhere else is just like lit, and then it goes to like a mid tone, and then it's kind of lit again. And the way the light's coming in from the back, I like this kind of cold fill light from the back, but it's a little bit like incoherent, where it's like casting a shadow on the barbarian's elbow, but not like in the front of the elf's cloak. And like I don't understand how there's a shadow like under the elf's jaw, but not like on the back of the barbarian's arm and that kind of thing. Um, it's not like it's like the back of the model, so it's not super important. It's not a very interesting part of the piece, but it's just something I noticed having a look at it. It might be like an option. This is a very light-hearted kind of piece, but if you had it, the that the back is just generally much darker, and then you have that cold light, kind of like on the barbarian's hair, where it's just like only spotlighting certain little bits. That might have been an easier way to get that kind of effect of the back is lit, but like who really cares? Turn it right around to the front. Um, I also really, really, really love all the textures on the wizard's like hat and his cloak and everything there. And it doesn't actually make any sense on the back that he's so well lit when everyone else isn't, but it looks really cool. So I don't know, maybe you could have just painted it as if they're just lit the same way from both sides, and that probably would have been fine too. But yeah, absolutely lovely piece. Great like character to everybody in it, and really nicely presented. So thanks for submitting once again, Jim.
Yeah, not too much else to pick fault with, really. It's really, really super work. Six adventurers, if you count the owl, of course, who's got magnificent eyes. Those look really, really good. Yeah, stunning. Great work on the eyes, like on all of them. And I also really enjoy how you've got like five different skin tones, five characters, five completely different skin tones. Like what you can do with skin is awesome. So it's just a brilliant showcase of how to do different varieties of skin. Really, ruddy, pale, old, weathered and leathery, or tarnished by the sun. But then obviously with this cold light as well from the back and keeping that all with the elf's face as well. Notice it looks really really good from the front. So this is obviously like the key viewing angle. But then obviously when you turn it around to the side, the highlight looks a bit weird around his jaw. But when you look at him from the front, it kind of makes total sense. It's a cold bounce light that's come up from the Mooney side. So there's a little bit of like a little bit of discontent. But when it's a it's a display piece, so it's a set viewing angle. I think that's fine. I think you can get away with that. If it's gonna look strange from one side, it should definitely be the side which is not the main viewing angle. So I think that's completely forgivable, to be honest. But yeah, super work again, Alexis. Thank you very much for sharing. Really, really cool. Moving up to Big Mac, who's back again with Schmick the Schmug Crossbow Gobbo, which is a fantastic name for a model. Painted in the usual Borderlands style. Going with some better eyes this time. NMM copper. And not too reflective on the crossbow. Wood texture. This is looking awesome. And then adding in the brighter lines to the Borderlands style as well, which is most visible on the pants and the scarf. So firstly, awesome work on the skin and the hair and the fabrics and the metals and the leather. Everything looks really, really good. And again, this Borderlands style just keeps surprising and keeps bringing up the goods every month. It just looks super. I love it. I think we've seen you do the wood effect before and the like a big blunderbuss type weapon. So this is cool, slightly different, like a lighter, more like a piney type tone of wood. So that's absolutely fine. I love like the skinny, like the reddy, pinky skin tones that you've got going on in the face, belly, and shoulders. That's all good. Oh, and the toesies. So that's all cool. I love the bloom of color as well on the hair. So you've actually got some very soft contrast going on there. That looks awesome. And again, the black lining at this scale, like monumentally difficult to do. So awesome stuff. The only thing that's kind of giving me a little bit of a weird feel to it, like a disconnection, if you like, is where you've put these light lines with the black lines. You've put them right underneath, and that is obviously, as you probably well know, the most effective way to make a solid surface look like it's been dented or chipped. So that's how this is reading. It looks not like fabric anymore. It looks more like something rock hard, basically. So I'd be a little bit careful with the bright lines going directly underneath the black lines. Okay, I think they could probably go. You could do it on the metals. That's fine. But anything fabricy, I try and keep those separate from each other. Even if you were to do it, for example here, you've got a light line below this black triangle. If you did a light line above that, that would still look like damage. I think they need to be completely separate from each other for this to pull off. It looks like you've done it a little bit on the leather glove, and that works better because they're kind of a little bit more of a mix, and it's not quite such a stark contrast between the dark and the light as what you've got on the pants and the scarf. So watch out for that. So yeah, interesting to see how that turns out next time. Give it another go because this is new to us, man. It's really really cool style. I love what you're doing with this. The copper looks super duper. I love that. Not too reflective. Think you nailed it. Got the shapes right. Got the reflections right. Yeah, a little bit of damage on there. Looks awesome. And the eyes as well. How the hell you did that? I don't know. That is wizardry. Like 1, 2, 3 shades of purple, then you've got yellow and green and a bit of blue, black lined, a tiny little glint perfectly placed. Like that's an insane amount of effort gone into an eyeball. You've done it twice. So hats off to you. That is really, really, really impressive work on the eyes. They look so good. And I love how you've incorporated the hair and the skin colour, and it still looks like that's her natural eye colour. I mean, it's fantastical. You can make them whatever you want, but it just looks and feels right, is what I'm trying to say. Like you've chosen the colours perfectly. Like you could quite easily have done red eyes or yellow or blue, And they probably, I probably would have chosen one of those three, to be honest, with the scheme of it. But I think you nailed it with the eye color. Really, really super. So enough gushing from me. Thank you very much, Mr. Morkerman, and I'll pass you over to Matt now.
Yeah, eyes are like absolutely stupendous. Like, just say again, like the way you've got like the kind of like bright light on the eyeball and it bleeds across the iris and like not quite into the pupil, and you have the
Ridiculous.
opposite one on there. It's stunning. Yeah, and the transition there make it look kind of like anime style, or it's like transitioning from one color to the other in the iris. It's great. I also love the way you have like the warmest, brightest kind of yellow green around this area of her face, so it just like draws all of our focus in there, makes it really like centered, and it's just like, and the little black lines around the nose, like they really, really make everything pop out. It's great. Yeah, more or less agree with what Jim said. I think your style has evolved from border reverse evolved because it's gone from Borderlands to Prince of Persia 2008. Look it up. Prince of Persia 2008. Ubisoft decided to blackline everything. He's got these puffy pants. You might be in this color scheme. Yeah, really kind of reminds me of that. But yeah, I think it all works. Do agree with Jim that like the fabrics look kind of like blocky and chunky, which again to me looks like they're 2008 era like polygons, which is fine. Like she's got like, I can imagine her cloak like or scarf not changing shape, like it just like swings like that because it is a 3D object somehow. Because she's got this kind of like computer gaming vibe to her. I think you were asking about the NMM on the copper breastplate thing. I think you kind of mostly worked it out. One of the issues with this is that because it's in a brown color, it can kind of look like shiny leather. But I think the way you've done those little cracks on it have, told us it's not leather. Leather doesn't do that. Although you might be nice to have like some bright chips, like where this chip is missing at the bottom, to have like a glint light along there as well, just to really be like, this is metal. And you could have, if you wanted, like a secondary reflection on the underboob area, just like a shade lighter than you have it there. And yeah, and I think the non-reflective metal looks fine. Again, it looks like in a computer game where they're like, we're rendering this as dark steel. It's basically gray with black lines on it. Like that's 100% makes sense to me. And yeah, just a super super nice looking piece all around. Thanks for submitting. You should be very very proud of this one. And then we've got another green skinned person, Stephen Banks, doing, it's like an orc. It's one of them space orcs. What thinks it's a fantasy orc guys? Beast Boys or something? Beast Boys is like a band. I don't know. Anyway, it's this guy. Uh, and going for good contrast, smooth blends, clean transitions, with a bit grinding gore as well. Cool. So since you gave us such precise goals to look for, I've actually organized my thoughts in such a manner. So the contrast. Things that I think work on the contrast is, in general, the colors you picked are quite strong. The way you've got like a mixture of warm and cool tones, they contrast with each other. The horns have a really really nice like run from like a very like a yellow brown up to like a basically black brown, so that's very good. The scales on his cape is like dragon scale tunic thing, have a really lovely like magenta, like up to white in some places and then down to basically black, so that's very good contrast. And then places where the contrast I don't think is as good is on his like weapon, the way you have there's like a bunch of different materials. Like he's got like a sword with like bits stuck onto it, but a lot of the bits are basically the same color as the blade, which makes them not stand out very much, and they're not like edge highlighted or whatever to like separate them from each other. I think probably they look better if the blade had more of this like natural steel color in it and less of the rust, or if you like switched the like random panels to be like steel, or just to have them be not brown, and then you could have the blood running across that to kind of tie it all together. Um, and then I don't really know. You've got the solid red and magenta, which I find I don't like as a color combo, because like I would use red or magenta because they're very close to each other, and I find it kind of clashes for me. And you've got like, when you're contrast, you got blue, you got green, you got yellow, but it's very desaturated, and you got red and magenta. Personally, I would probably do one, but I get why you did it this way, because it's the red is the kind of orky painted steel bits, and the magenta is the kind of beast hide stuff. Um, yeah. And then blends, again, the horns look very good. They've got a nice mixture of like kind of wet blending or just like smooth blending and like streaking and striping going on in there. The red metal also has a nice run from like dark to the edges. And then the hair has good contrast, but not really much in the way of blending, I would say. Like you've got obviously it goes from black to very light blue. I think you could do more glazes on there to kind of like even it out, or do the opposite and like roughen it up so it's like really like goes up to like white in places and things to make it look more like it's not like smooth shiny hair. And then the skin isn't super smooth either in terms of blending. It looks a little bit blotchy in around the face. I'd probably, yeah, it's just literally to do with the application and kind of area you've got it going on. And I'd focus maybe, looks like you try to get really into all the little creases. What I would do is recommend going for like a large area first. So be like, I'm gonna highlight all of the forehead, and then I'll worry about these little like creases that are there later, because it looks like you kind of try to leave them there, but then also highlight here, but then leave a space and then highlight there. And it just ends up looking a little bit like patchy rather than like smooth. And then the transitions in general are very good. There's not really any bleed over I noticed from any kind of like one area to another one, apart from like obviously the blood and rust and stuff where it's meant to do that. You got a very, very, very sharp transitions on your power cabling from that black to yellow, which is I assume you went yellow and then went black over it. I think it probably is too sharp though. Like it's an orc, so like the power cabling, the striping isn't perfectly symmetrical, which you probably don't want. But I think you could just have some grime, some interference in there to show that, like, like it'll break up the pattern a bit and make it look a bit more orky, and make it not as obvious that the lines aren't like parallel to each other as they wrap around. And I'm not sure I would have done the kind of yellow striping on the like top up near his head. Like I get that it's the same kind of stuff and it's connecting to his little thing that looks like an Among Us for some reason, is like a targeting device. I don't know. But I just kind of feel like the cable's kind of like leading your eye into the middle, and there's this power pack here, and then this other section is just kind of sitting up there. It's not even connected to it. It's a little bit disconnected. Like that could just be black or brown or whatever, some other color for the cabling. Um, but yeah, overall it's nice. I think the grime and the gore definitely works. Like it's not over the top, and it's not detracting from the overall kind of like presentation of the piece. So thanks for submitting, Jim.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive. Not much left to say. I'd say the three biggest things for me: more highlights on the face and smoothness, because as Matt said, you've kind of got this condition called islanding. So treat the head as its own shape first, get all the highlighting done, and then, as Matt said, then go push your shadows where you need them. But you do need to go higher with the contrast. The teeth look a little bit flat as well, so try and get some brighter bone color in there to sharpen up the teeth and make them look a little bit more viscous. I think that would be cool. So that's it for the head. Then the fur, I think, is quite a big area, and I think you've done quite a good job of like rendering it. It's a shocking sculpt; they always are. But I think you've done a pretty good job of it. You could maybe just sort of darken it out towards the end. So if you keep the fur closest to his head a little bit brighter than what's away from him, it's another nice way to sort of bring the attention forward into the head, and that will go nicely contrast with the horns as well, how they're dark at this end and then they go bright. You're sweeping that attention up towards the face. I mean, orcs are tricky when they've got this great big eye and jaw thing in front of their face anyway, to keep the attention up there. So yeah, there's that. I really like the gore effects. They look great. Less is more, and I think you've got a very nice balance of that going on here. It's so very easy to go too far with your blood for the blood god and your toothbrush or however you got it in there. I use the airbrush nowadays. Actually, really good fun. You ever done that one? You just get it on the end of a like the back end of a paintbrush and just. It's
Yeah,
nice.
or you can do a thing where you get a lollipop stick and you like stick it under your airbrush and you like bounce it off and it goes like it goes everywhere.
Yeah. I haven't tried that one yet. That's cool.
It's all good.
It's all good, baby. It's all good learning and fun. Hazard stripes, yeah, definitely. If you're gonna do a freehand pattern like this, tidiness is king. You've set yourself quite a high bar there with making them that small. So next time, widen those babies out. Maybe like 1.5, maybe even like twice the size, and you'll get away with it. I don't know which way round you did it, but it's definitely good to start with the yellow and then do the black. You will obviously have to go back and forth. Will obviously happen. Don't be afraid to do it. But like I say, make those stripes wider, and that will be an awful lot easier for you. Skin again, just push the highlights up on it on this side as well. That's kind of a flat green with a bit of wash in there. So yeah, definitely bring a little bit more tone to it. Go up through the greens, fine, and then just do like a yellow glaze over the top of it. That will firstly bind it all together, but it'll also give you that lovely tint as well. Just knock it back a little bit. Good luck on the base. I think you've painted the tufts. In some cases, if you didn't, then they're very, very cool tufts, and I'd like to know where you got them from because they look really nice. And the dry brushing and texture, and the extra color that you've got in the rocks on the base as well is really, really nice. So plenty of interest going on down there, so that's cool. And I also like the little targeting freehand that you did on the little squiggly that's up on that shoulder mounted gun there. That's a very nice little detail there. Maybe you could do that in a different color just to call that out a little bit more, because that's a fun little detail there, and it's not terribly obvious when you're looking at everything else going on. But yeah, thank you very much, Stephen. Keep it up, and see you again next month, hopefully. And I believe that's it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a million to everyone for submitting. We'd be very happy to see you again and to see any new people who want to submit. I'll be putting up the event on our Facebook group, like tomorrow or something like that. If for some reason you found this while not being in that Facebook group, just call Painters Motivating Painters and just look it up on Facebook. And we'll be happy to see you next month for May.